What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the new Warlock exotic gloves, Ballidorse Wrathweavers. Strand is obviously the new hotness right now, so basically no one is messing with stasis these days, but these exotics are actually better than I thought they would be going into the testing. In this video, I'll break down all the damage numbers you need to know, so let's get right into it. First things first is we have to know what the heck these things even do. Their armor perk is called Hearts of Ice. Your Winter's Wrath Shockwave deals increased shatter damage. Allies in range of your Shockwave gain an overshield and increase damage with stasis weapons. So first, let's look at the last part of the perk, the increase to stasis weapon damage. Because this description is so specific, I was hopeful that maybe it would stack with things like Well of Radiance, because you need a Shadebinder Warlock to be in super to get the buff, and it only buffs stasis weapons. However, that is not the case. As you can see in the background footage, I shoot my stasis weapons. My IS Luna hits for 4261 damage to the head, and then my boy Baker casts his Shockwave, and you can see I gain an overshield. The overshield lasts for 15 seconds, as does the damage boost. And then my damage goes up to 4900 on the hand cannon. This is a 15% damage increase. I then pop a well, and my hand cannon hits for 5326 damage. This is 25% more damage, which is the regular radiant buff from Well, so unfortunately, these buffs do not stack. The higher damage increase just takes over. So that was kind of a bummer. Additionally, he cannot refresh my stasis overshield timer and weapon buff timer. He pulses the Shockwave again at 7 seconds on the timer, but it does not refresh. However, just before his super runs out, he pulses the Shockwave one more time, and it refreshes the damage buff for another 15 seconds. So you can't keep proccing it, which sucks, because in this scenario he was only pulsing his super here, which is why it lasted so long. If you throw your ice shards and then pulse, like a normal person would do, because that is how the super deals its damage, then your super will run out before your teammate's timer runs out. So you would not be able to refresh it in a normal scenario. When shooting crystals and popping your Shockwave, the super only lasts for about 12 seconds. So anyways, the damage boost thing is kind of a bummer and very niche. Shadebinder super has a pretty long cooldown to start with, and then when your teammate does use their super, you have to be in the range of the Shockwave to get the damage buff, and the buff only applies to stasis weapons. Other weapons do not get the buff. So yeah, it's a pretty niche scenario to say the least. But luckily, that is only one part of the exotic. The bigger part is the buff to super damage. So let's take a look at that. It says your Shockwave deals increased shatter damage, but interestingly, it also deals increased Shockwave damage. Without the exotic on, my super was hitting the enemies for 3672 damage with each pulse. But with the exotic on, it hits for 7303 damage with each pulse, and that is double damage, so it's not too shabby. Also, as you can see in the background gameplay, the pulse wave cannot kill enemies, it only leaves them one shot. But now, let's look at the damage of the super. And before we get into the numbers, I have to clarify a couple things. I will be talking about the damage with Whisper of Fissures on. Whisper of Fissures is a fragment that increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This is a very strong fragment, and I recommend you run it if your build is centered around freezing, as the explosion radius is really helpful for ad killing. However, when equipped with the super, its damage increase is almost negligible. Without the exotic, one freeze burst hits Carl for 77,991 damage, and with Fissures, you get one extra tick of 1,424 damage. That is a 1.8% damage increase. Very small. However, if your whole team was on stasis, and say a player popped a behemoth and there were crystals everywhere, then the Fissures explosions could deal a lot of damage. But again, that's a very niche scenario. What I am saying is, I will show the damage numbers I got with Fissures equipped, but the damage does not increase the super total damage by very much. With 5 freeze bursts, which is about the max you can get off, you will deal an extra 7,120 damage. And with the exotic, that Fissures burst goes to 1708 damage, so you'll deal an extra 8,540. But that percentage of total damage is even smaller with the gloves equipped, as you are about to see. That is because these gloves actually increase the total damage of the super by quite a lot. So let's look at how much. Now, I made a video breaking down the two-tailed fox damage with the catalyst, and unfortunately, I did not test those numbers on a boss. I did correct my error in a pinned comment, but all that is to say is I will be showing the damage on majors and bosses for this video. And I am really glad I did, because this exotic deals a different amount of bonus damage to bosses than it does majors. So first, let's look at majors. Again, all the data will be with Whisper of Fissures equipped. The total damage per burst is 79,415, but we also have the Ice Ball damage. Those numbers are very hard to see all at once. But I was able to slow it down and add them all up, and they hit for 7530, bringing the total damage of a combo to 86,945 damage per attack. And on a perfect supercast, you can get off 5 combos. So 434,725 total damage. Honestly, that's a lot better than I thought it was. I've used Shadebinder in high-end content, and it definitely feels a little weak. I guess it's because it feels like an ad clear super, so it's frustrating when you have to focus multiple combos on heavier tier ads. But that is exactly what this exotic is here to solve. So now, let's see how much extra damage it does to a major like Carl. Once again, the initial Ice Ball hits for a variety of numbers, which adds up to a total of 7,668. And then the pulse damage absolutely chunks. It hits for 4 numbers, 3 for the explosion and 1 from fissures. These numbers total up to 175,213 damage, plus the Ice Ball damage of 7668, for a total of 182,881 for the combo. So the big explosion deals 140% more damage, or 2.4x. But the total damage of the combo, with all the numbers taken into account, is 110% more damage, or 2.1x. Still, that is more than double damage, so these gloves are pretty damn good. But that is on a major. So now let's see what it does to a boss. First, without the gloves, we hit for 3822 with an Ice Ball, and then the explosion hits for 42,443 damage for a total of 46,265. Then we throw the gloves on and repeat the test. The Ice Ball actually hits for the same damage this time at 3822, and the total of the explosion damage is 77,301. So the total combo is 81,123, which is only a 75% buff, or 1.75x more total damage to a boss. The explosion damage, the big number that you see, is exactly double the explosion damage of a regular burst, but the other numbers factored in do not double alongside it. So on majors, these gloves wreck. The explosion damage is 2.4 times stronger on a major and 2.1 times stronger overall. And this is so good because it makes the super much more efficient. I said you can only get off 5 combos in a super, so if you waste 2 combos on one high tier ad, you're getting a lot less ad clear. Over double damage to majors will help this super clear out a room very easily. I used Shadebinder in the Insight Terminus Grandmaster, and the super definitely felt weak to me. So this will really help with that. As for boss damage, you will want to stay away. There's other supers that are far better for boss DPS. I still think Osmiomancies are the go-to exotic for Stasis Warlocks, but in content where your loadout isn't locked, these would make a wonderful hot swap exotic. Throw them on, pop your super, go to town, and then switch back to the Osmiomancies. But you could even make a build, I am sure, in GM content with these. But you would really want to spec into Intellect and the Fragment Whisper of Bonds, which gives you super energy for killing frozen enemies. Anyways, that is my deep dive on the new Warlock exotics Ballidorse Wrathweavers. I really hope you found it helpful, and if you did, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you made it this far, then I thank you so much for watching to the end. It means a lot. Take care.